Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, the Mad Geiger, and up here today, guys, I've got some, um, sort of upcoming videos. I've been writing some stuff down actually, and it's actually quite nice to be able to write stuff down and go through some things. And what I'm going to be doing over these next few videos is I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite TV shows and movies. And obviously, movies will be in their own video, but for the TV shows, I've split them into three categories. I've split them into game shows, live action shows, and of course, animated shows. Um, and how I sort of categorize these and sort of put thought into doing these is by including three things into put down each sort of like my favorites. First is obviously nostalgia factor, things that I watched as a kid, and I still watch today, kind of thing, because nostalgia plays a lot into something being your favorite. When I talk about like Time Splitters Future Perfect being my favorite all-time game, the reason why that game is my favorite all-time game is because of the nostalgia I have for it, and it still holds up today. Of course, again, similar to nostalgia is how many times I've watched these shows and movies. I've watched recent shows like The Office when I watched The Office, and some movies that I've seen for the first time, watching some of the Star Treks for the first time. And although I really enjoyed them, I can't say it's like my favourite because I've only watched them all the way through once. And saying something's your favourite after only seeing it once is kind of like, for me, something, if you've seen something multiple times, that means that you really enjoy it. And that's why I've included, shows and movies that I've seen multiple times. And of course, another thing is obviously, do I still like them today? How many times will I go and watch these shows and movies? Are these the sort of shows and movies that I can rewatch even today, even though I may have seen them hundreds of times before in the past? Is it still something I can go back to and watch today and enjoy, or do I just put it on and just go, I don't want to watch this anymore, kind of thing? Do I get bored of them? And so, yeah, that's why I split them into three categories. Live action shows, obviously the things in these videos will be a majority of mix between adult animations and adult TV shows, and those sort of more aimed towards adults. And then obviously there will be some stuff from my childhood on there that I still could go back and watch today, kind of thing. But today we're going to focus on game shows. Yes, game shows. Believe it or not, a lot of my childhood, I spent a lot of time watching game shows. Here in the UK on Virgin and Sky, we have a TV channel called Challenge, and Challenge is essentially Game Show Central. And it doesn't necessarily have new game shows on there. It's mostly older stuff. And you're going to notice these game shows are all old game shows. Some of these shows are still running today and they do new episodes. But I don't really much care for the new game shows that are on like the BBC and ITV today. I don't watch a lot of live TV and stuff like that. So pretty much I'm more of a nostalgic person. And these shows have a lot of nostalgia for me. I don't know why I really liked game shows as a kid, and I still do today. Maybe it was because of that whole fantasy of going, oh my God, I wish I could have been on there. And obviously, a lot of the shows that I've got here don't run anymore, unfortunately. But luckily, Challenge is like my favourite channel on my Virgin. It's pretty much what I record every time I record most of these game shows, and I just put them on in the background sometimes. But the first game show I want to talk about is The Price is Right. Now, of course, you guys in America know The Price is Right has been going on for a long time. But here in the UK, there's only been, well, I think there was one previously, and maybe it's been for a long time. But the one that I remember most was Bruce's Price is Right, hosted by Bruce Forsyth. Rest in peace. I really loved watching this show as a kid, and I still watch it today. It's normally the show that I have on in the background. And there was a later one with Joe Pasquale, which I thought was pretty good. I do remember that as well from my childhood. But the one that I remember more was the Bruce's Price is Right. The whole challenge was obviously these contestants would come down and they would have to guess the price of a small item first. It could be like a radio player or a DVD player or a TV or something. and then whoever was closest, like under, so like if it was £250 and someone guessed £245 and they were the closest, they'd be the one to go through. If you went over, you were out basically. You didn't get the prize. And then they would go and do like a game themselves. There were so many memorable games. There was like Hole in One, which was one with a golf club. Had to get the golf into the ball. There was like Cliffhanger with the little guy going up the stairs, and every pound you were out, he would go up one step. There was Plinko, you know, the one where you drop the discs in and it goes down. You know, there were a bunch of different ones, and there's quite. I'd say there was about 20 plus different games, I guess you could call it. And I really like the Price is Right because it was all based on guessing, and that's what was really great about it. Is anyone could have really won on it because it was all about guessing. You know, there was no, you know, it was always, I'll guess the price of this, guess the price of that. And at the end, they would go into this big wheel and they'd have to spin it. Whoever got the highest score, closest to 100, would go through, and they would have all of these prizes come out, you know, like cars, boats, caravans, holidays, cameras, furniture. It was everything, and they'd have to give like a rough estimate how it would all much be together, and they maybe have like between 1,000 to 5,000 range to get it right. So if they say 24,000 and they had a range of 3,000, it could be anywhere between 24 and 27,000. And if it was right, they'd win. If it weren't, they'd lose. But I remember Price is Right being a really good show. I know in America it's still going. I've never watched the American one. I would like to watch it sometime. The next show that I remember a lot of as a kid was Supermarket Sweep. It was hosted by Dale Winton. Again, rest in peace. I think Dale Winton died. I'm sure he did. And I could be wrong. He might still be alive. But I remember watching a Supermarket Sweep as a kid. You know, from someone that actually hated going shopping. Actually, that's not true. I used to go to Asda all the time with my aunt and my nan as a kid, and I used to love doing it. And the whole point was the show was based in like a supermarket, and they'd have to answer questions, you know, do little mini games, you know, like most of it was like wordplay or trying to guess the prices. But what I loved about the show, my favourite part of the show, was at the end, they were always playing for time. So every time they got a question right in the pre-round games, they would gain 10 seconds. And then these amount of time, you know, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, they'd have to go around the supermarket grabbing all of these things. You know, there were like inflatables and little cans and stuff, and bonus items you could get for extra money. And they'd throw it all in their trolleys. And you know, I always remember that as a kid, you know, the whole shopping spree thing. That's what it reminded me of. And I used to love that one. I remember when I was like in the later years of school, it's going to sound really bad and probably why I failed most of my exams, but it used to be on at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd stay up till like 2 o'clock and just watch that show. I know I shouldn't have, but it was a memory of mine. The next one was Catchphrase. The one that I remember most was the like late 80s, 90s one with Roy Walker. There was later versions with Steve Curry and Nick Rea as well, and I have seen most of them. And they did do newer versions of Catchphrase as well. I think Wyatt Davis did a modern Catchphrase with celebrities for charity, and there was also someone else who did it. But I remember Catchphrase because how it works is they would have two people, and there would be like these animations on the screen, and it would, like, for example, there might be a rock going down the hill, and like they might say, "Oh, Rolling Rock" was the right answer. Just an example. And I remember loving that as a kid. The prizes were always for they get money for obviously getting catchphrases right, and then there would be like fast money round where the faster they answer the question, the more money they get. Most of the time the prizes were for holidays, like around the world. Sometimes in the Nick Rea ones there would be like people could say where would you want to go anywhere in the world. And yeah, it was mostly holiday based, but I used to love watching Catchphrase because I'd always think, oh wow, you know, a lot of the times they were really weird answers, but that's what I loved about Catchphrase. It made you think outside the box. It weren't really one of these shows where you really had to know a lot. Anyone could really do it. It was all about say what you see, basically. And I used to love Catchphrase. The next one is probably a lot of people are going to love this one. Takeshi's Castle. Oh my god, I loved Takeshi's Castle as a kid. It was a show based in Japan. I don't know if it was called Takeshi's Castle in Japan. It was probably called something different. But obviously it was voiced over by Craig Childs. Of course, we all know Craig Childs is obviously Red Dwarf and that. And it was such a funny show. They go through all of these crazy mini games, and there'd be ones where they have to climb over a wall, ones where they'd have like their arms like that, and they'd have to try and catch buns. There would be crazy ones. My favourite one was the stepping stone one, where they'd have to run across the stepping stones, and sometimes the stepping stones were solid, other times they would be like fall over and they fall in the water. There were so many crazy mini games, and then at the end of the show they go in these little tanks and have water guns and have to squirt like the little ring. And it was such a wacky show. It was unbelievably wacky, and it's so annoying that they haven't put it back on Virgin. You know, challenge, if you're listening, get Takeshi's Castle back on Virgin, please. I know Dick and Dom did a modern version of Takeshi's Castle. I never watched it, unfortunately. I should have. But I loved Takeshi's Castle. It was so wacky. It was so over the top. It went on for a long time. You know, there were so many seasons. Obviously, you can probably go online and watch them, but I would just love to see it back on TV. There was another version called MXC, which was still Takeshi's Castle, but it was American voiced over. And I remember it being it was obviously the same show, but they'd actually have parts where you'd see like the people talking to each other, and they'd have voiceovers, and it was actually pretty funny. The voiceover part was pretty funny, like the interviews and stuff with Gila Douche. I remember MXC as well. It was a really funny version of Takeshi's Castle. But surprisingly, MXC, if you want like the DVDs, they on Amazon they go for like $500. It's mad. Another show that I remember, game show that I used to love watching as a kid, was called Nightmare. Spelt with a K, as in, you know, Knights, you know, Knights of the Round Table. Nightmare was probably one of my all-time. Oh my god, this show was so great. Basically how it worked is you had these four kids. 3 kids would sit in a room and look at the screen, and they'd have a pen and paper, and they'd write down notes and tell the other person what to do. And then there was one kid that would have this helmet on, and obviously he or she could not see what they were doing. And the kids on the in the room would see the screen, and it was all like dungeon based and mystical and fantasy based. Obviously it was all green screen, what we know that today, but back then I thought it was real. And they'd have to go through the rooms, and they'd say, go forward, pick this up, say this. And there'd be all of these different things that would happen. Like there'd be rooms with traps in. It kind of reminded me a little bit, if you've ever heard of the game. What's that game? The one where you have to press the button at the right time. Dragon's Lair. It reminded me of that a little bit. And, you know, there'd be parts like you'd see like dragons or something would say, answer this question and you'll get through. There'd be parts where there'd be traps, and obviously the main feature of the show, and what made the show so hard, like this was one of the hardest game shows, I'd say it was a game show I'd ever seen as a kid, because how it worked is, while they were doing all of this stuff, is you had to be careful, because if you took the wrong step, your person would fail and die and disappear. And how it worked was they'd have a health bar, and this health bar would slowly deteriorate. It was a picture of like a face, and it was like the skin would start peeling off, and then the skulls and the eyes. Kind of creepy, but that would slowly deteriorate over time. So they had to be quick, but at the same time they couldn't be too quick. And the only way to replenish that was sometimes they'd pick up like an apple or something on a table and put it in the pouch, and it would give them health back. And I remember when I watched the show, only once did I ever see anyone win it. It was that hard. And it was a really challenging show, but I used to love that. Speaking of another kids-based TV show, game show, Funhouse. Oh my god, Funhouse was awesome. You know, how it worked is you'd have like 2 teams of kids, the red team and the yellow team, and they do all these like wacky, crazy, like mini games, like, you know, where it involved a lot of slime and stuff, you know, and being dirty and stuff and crazy things like that. And there'd be like these two twin sisters that would be on there. Pat Sharp used to host the show, and they'd I remember the main part I remember was they would go around in these go-karts toward the end of the show. And then at the end, they'd go into like this giant fun house, you know, like the fun houses you see at the carnivals and stuff. And they'd have to grab like the prize tickets and they'd win all these prizes. You know, as a kid, it was before my time, so I never watched this like when it was first aired, because I think it was like 90s, late 80s, 90s. But I remember watching it when I was about mid-teenagers and absolutely loving it. You know, for someone with Asperger's and ADHD, you know, I'm a little warped in some senses, but I used to love watching that. And it's a shame that they haven't brought it back to TV, you know. Funhouse would be an amazing show to bring back, you know. I think kids would love it. The next one I want to talk about is Robot Wars. It is technically a game show. I always thought of it as a game show, but again, hosted by Craig Charles. Robot Wars was like the epiphany of, oh my god, that is like so awesome. You know, basically they would have these remote controlled robots that people would make, and there would be so many crazy ones. Like there'd be ones that have flamethrowers, ones that have saw blades, there'd be shitty ones, there'd be great ones. Of course there was like the gladiators, as you call them, or I can't remember for the life of me what they called, like the main bad guys. But I do remember their names. There was like Shunt, there was like the big gladiator one, I can't remember his name. Hypno Disc, I do remember Hypno Disc. There were a few video games made of it as well. But Robot Wars was so awesome, you know. It took what I loved as a kid, you know, robots, destruction derby, blowing things up, explosions. It was so cool, you know. Robot Wars was so cool. And what I loved about it is it was just it was real, you know. These people went out their way to make these robots, and it was amazing what people made. I used to love Robot Wars as well, and you know, Robot Wars should come back. I feel like if it came back today, it'd be more digitalized. But yeah, the next one I want to talk about is Wheel of Fortune. I'm going to be honest with you. I did watch some Wheel of Fortune as a kid, and I obviously how Wheel of Fortune works. Everyone knows how Wheel of Fortune works. There'd be like a puzzle on the screen, a word puzzle, and they'd say, oh, it's a place and a person. So the answer could be like, I don't know, Roger Moore or something. And they'd have to spin the wheel, and then they'd get points, and for how many letters they guessed would be the amount of points that they would get. So if they guessed like Y or something, and there was two Y's on the screen, and they spun like 800 points, they get 2 times 800. And obviously they'd win prizes throughout the show. And of course, there were multiple hosts. I can't remember the top of my head. I know Louis Walsh, not Louis Walsh. I can't remember his name. Did it? It was very big in America, but in the UK it was pretty big too. And obviously at the end they'd have to do like a big puzzle, and they could win either money or a car or holiday or something. So there'd be loads of different prizes. Wheel of Fortune was always a fun show that I used to watch as a kid, and I still watch it today. And the last one I want to talk about is called Strike It Lucky. And I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't watched it in years. I've got it recorded. I do remember a little bit about it. It's kind of a cheap one, but I wanted to put it on here because I do remember loving it as a kid. It was hosted by Michael Barrymore. I was going to say Drew Barrymore, but it's not Drew Barrymore. Basically, you know, it was all about like, I think it was like answering questions, and they'd go through like, they'd have like the arrows and obviously go across, and they'd have to try and get to the end. I remember loving it as a kid. I don't know what it was that I loved about it. I have got some episodes recorded on my TV, so I'm going to have to rewatch some of them and see if it still holds up. I can't really think of any more game shows that I used to watch as a kid that I still watch today. These are the most of the ones that I love. And, you know, the reason I wanted to do these sort of videos is because I wanted to give you guys sort of a brief idea about what sort of things are my favourites. And like I said, I didn't want to just throw in things that I've only seen 1 or 2 episodes of and say, oh, I love it. These are shows that I've watched time and time again, and still I would watch today. And yeah, I used to love game shows as a kid, so I'm sorry if this is a little bit out there. It's not really focusing on things that you might know, but you never know, guys. You know, let me know in these comments below. Do you watch game shows? What were some of your favourite game shows? I know I'm missing out on some of the big ones, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I weren't really big on quiz shows. I was more a fan of the gimmick-based game shows, you know, where there was always a gimmick, you know, like Catchphrase. The gimmick was obviously, you know, getting the right answer for the screen, obviously. You know, I spent a lot of my childhood watching game shows, whether I'd be watching them with my parents or watching them in my room late at night, growing up as my teenage years. And I still watch them today when I'm sitting there playing on my tab at night after I've come off the Xbox or whatever. And, you know, I put Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune on in the background. You know, they were just so fun. I think the best era for game shows for me was the late 80s and the 90s. I had the best game shows. The early 2000s had some good revamped versions of the shows, but I don't know, man. I just felt like the late 90s and the late 80s and the mid 90s had some of the best game shows, and they still hold up today. And it's, you know, we laugh at them like, oh my god, these prizes are so shitty by today's standard, but you know, some of the shows they brought back, they did do like a new supermarket sweep with Ryden on ITV. It was okay, but I just watched it and I thought some of the people and they just made me want to go bang like that. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Something a bit different today. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and of course comment below. Let me know what some of your favourite game shows are. If you're from other parts of the world, let me know what game shows you have in your countries. And the ones that I've mentioned, have you got them in your country? Have you got your own version of them? Maybe send me some links to them. I would love to watch like American game shows and see if they're any different to the English counterpart. I know a lot of the times, you know, Americans copied English shows and English copied American shows. I don't know which one come first. I think they're all aired at the same time. Even if you're from other parts of the world, like India or Germany or something like that, I'd love to know some of your shows that you have. Really love game shows. I'd love to know what ones are going on. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. We'll be continuing on during the over these next few days with some more top favourite lists of mine. TV shows, we're going to be doing live action and animated TV shows, and of course we will be going over some of the movies. Of course, some of my favourites. This is a great way for you guys to know a little bit more about me. I've been doing YouTube for what, 6-7 years now, and I still like to share with you guys everything. So of course, guys, follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Twitch at the Mad Kyger. I might be streaming tonight. If I am, I will obviously put the announcement out on Twitter. Chances are it will probably be some more Overwatch. I'm gonna probably just maybe do a couple more Overwatch streams, and then I might start playing some PS4 or some other Xbox games. I think me and my friend are going to try out Saints Row 2 at some point. Do a playthrough of Saints Row 2 because it's free on the Xbox. So I wouldn't mind replaying Saints Row 2, seeing how we did 3 not long ago. And as always, guys, have a nice day. And I will see you in the next video. Take care and bye-bye.